few moments. Let's check out the men's race. Interesting development there. 4 guys are in front now by a margin of almost, what, three and a half minutes?
3.5 minutes, and they're not 4 guys we expect to win this race either. So I think Mark Gorski had a point earlier when he said to us, this race is not hard enough for the US Postal boys. They want guys to get out there and chase so they get tired towards the end. Here's the 4 leaders at the moment. They're Clark Sheehan, Mike Sayers, Matt Hansen, and Lucas Segato. They're all American, I think, John, and they're all looking pretty cool at the moment.
They're good riders. They're looking for their chance in the sunlight here, and they're out there. They're riding for everything they can. Will they stay out there? We don't know, but they're certainly contributing in their way to making this race tough.
Well, in fact, I better get it right. They're all North American, John, because Hansen and Segato are Canadians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, let's have a look at the pictures here, because we see the riders going through. They're working together. They're doing what we call bit and bit. They're sharing the breaking of the wind at the front, and then they save about 30% of their energy by hiding in the slipstream of the other riders. That's what they'll do. That'll be the form at the moment, but they look as though they're really getting a turn of speed over Lemon Hill here. And this crowd enjoying what is a wonderful summer's day here, as we're seeing these riders really work very, very hard on the climb.
That's Clark Sheehan. A very interesting story. A man who was on top of his game, had a terrible broken leg a few years ago, and has gotten himself back to the top of professional cycling, at least back into the peloton. And here he is trying to make yet one more step towards his rehabilitation and getting his name back to what it was.
We also have Mike McCarthy down there. Mike is riding on a motorcycle right along with the riders. Mike, can you hear us right now?
I can, Gary. I'm right here.
What is going on with these 4? That's quite a sizable lead at this time.
It is. You know, it's a sort of group that could potentially do some damage. Clark Sheehan a few years ago at the Tour du Pont put on an awesome show. Won a stage after about 120-mile 2-up breakaway. This is a guy that's used to being in this position. He's up here. He's doing some work, but not a whole lot. Mike Sayers from the Mercury team seems to be the animator right now. He's been at the front. I think they want to try to put the pressure on the European teams now, make these guys stick their noses in the wind. But as far as I can tell from this position, all these guys riding very comfortably. I think Hansen may be the only one that's struggling a little bit. We saw him off the back just a tad on the climb up Manayunk there. But for the most part, all these guys are riding very strong.
What is going on with the Mercury team there, Mike?
Well, Mike Sayers just having a word with his manager, John Warden, in the car there, probably discussing some strategy, seeing how much of a lead these guys really want to try and get. You know, John Warden may want to gamble on Sayers here a little bit, try to get him, you know, enough of a lead so that when Gord Fraser, when the big guys from the Mercury team come up here, they have someone to race with.
And they are through lap number 6, heading to lap number 7 on the Ben Franklin Parkway, heading around Logan Circle. There's your chopper shop right here. You got 4 people in front, 4 leaders, a couple of chasers, and the rest of the pack, and we got it all set up, don't we, Phil?
Well, there's the 4 leaders, and right behind we've got Harm Janssen, the Dutchman, trying to get on terms, and he's closed the gap in company of Chris Baldwin into about 45 seconds off the 4, catching the 4 leaders now. The main field was still waiting to come into our sights on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, but I think in the next couple of miles we are going to see 6 riders in the lead because these are the 4 riders coming up. They've now covered 89 miles of the 156. Very strange race pattern today because all of the projected stars in this race are still sitting in the pack, and I can't quite work it out.
This race is going according to a pattern that it's seen in previous years. It is a long race. In a race this long, you can't be sort of under pressure the entire time. There've got to be lulls, there've got to be moments to take off. Right here you have the breakaway group, some young men who saw their chance to get out in front and take a chance of staying away for a few laps, getting some television time, sprinting for some extra money.
Sure.
As you see Sayers doing here, sprinting for some preems, picking up some extra cash for the Mercury bank account. And don't forget, for a professional team, aggression does pay off in 2 ways, tactically and television time for your sponsors. It is fairly simple.
All right, the sights and sound as they finish lap number 6, heading to lap number 7. The men are finishing lap number 6, heading to lap number 7, as we see them right here.
Well, they've gone through out onto lap number 7, 91 miles covered now. The 2 chasers, Harm Janssen and Chris Baldwin, are 20 seconds off catching the 4 leaders, and the bunch is at 2 minutes 25 seconds. So everybody closing in yet again. These are the 4 leaders now and working very, very hard. Harm Janssen, who's a Dutchman who rode for the Netherlands in the World Championship, I think back in 1989. He's been around a long time. Bases himself a lot in the United States now. I was with him racing, in fact, in Australia and in South Africa as well this year. but he is a good rider and a lot of strength. If he can get up there with Chris Baldwin, 6 riders up front is going to cause a problem for a while.
91 miles down, 65 miles to go. It is only just begun. We'll be back with the U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. Do not go away right after this. We are back live, U.S. Pro Cycling Championship. These are the men on lap number 7. Sheehan, Sayers, Hansen, Segato. Not a Philadelphia law firm, but they are the 4 leaders right now with 2 guys just behind them in the chase position. And John, it's an interesting race because these guys are putting the pressure on the rest of the guys behind them.
It's also very interesting because you have riders who are in all based on the North American circuit. None of the big international riders are here. Mercury, the leaders of the domestic circuit along with Saturn, are represented in front. Nutrafig in front with Luca Segato of Canada is, interestingly enough, that is the feeder team, the farm team, if you will, for the Mercury cycling team.
Oh, really?
So you got AAA and Major League in the same breakaway there, pulling away. And now they're just right now being caught by the 2 men who are chasing behind. One of them is Harm Janssen, the Dutchman that Phil Liggett spoke about so often, and we don't have the 6th rider's number. Chris Baldwin.
There you go.
Coming up, young riders, once again, showing their faces in the front of this big international bike race on live television. 6 men, that's a good group for a big breakaway like this. If they get together, if they start working, they could gain some time.
So what we just saw here was the 4 and the 2 become 6 as Baldwin and Jansen came up and caught these guys there on lap number 7.
Well, I think that's a very good move now, because now there are 6 riders. Harm Janssen is riding extremely well this year, and he's a bit of his own PR man. He's always sending me emails on how well he's doing, you know.
Really?
But he rode the Tour of Ireland this year, and I can't remember exactly, Gary, but I think he won 4 stages, which he said was an Irish record, but I knew it wasn't. That race has been going a long time. But even so, that took a lot of doing.
Good riders in the front here. You see them all lined up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them sitting in the slipstream. Now the one in front, the Mercury rider, will pull off, and the next one will come through, and in his turn, break through the wind. And this is how, for those of you who are new to cycling, that the sport works. Each of them get out there, take turns plowing through the wind, plowing through that wall of wind, if you will, which is what it feels like on a bicycle, moving over and then letting the next rider go through. They work together, they share the pace, and with 6 riders could save enough energy and use enough strength to make a lot of time to do a high speed for a good long distance.
Worst place to be is in the lead. Back live with Phil and John, and I guess the men are still that big 6. That's the group to watch right now.
Yeah, definitely. And Janssen, I've now checked his record, has won 4 stages this year in the Tour of Ireland. He's also won a couple of stages in the Tour of Wellington in New Zealand, and he's also won races in Australia. So he's a very versatile, well-travelled Dutchman. And he lives here now in the United States, and I think he's made a good move here to bring this race together at the front, 6 riders. Janssen's the one with the red crash helmet. He's number 2 at the moment as we look at the pictures here in the line.
So if Jansen wins this race, he'll really, you don't have to email you. He can come up and just talk to you.
I must remind him, because funnily enough, since I've arrived in the States, I've never had minutes to speak to him. I still find him on the email.
All right, thank you, Phil. We'll be
Wonderful
back with
thing,
more
that email.
U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. We're live. Stay right there. We'll be back right after this. Just joining us, let's check in with a race summary. Brought to you by First Union, of course.
This racing summary is brought to you by First Union.
And checking out the race summary up to the moment, brought to you by First Union. A 6-man break in the men. Sheehan, Sayers, Hansen, Segato, Jansen, and Baldwin as they're in lap number 7. As we're doing our homework and checking it twice, let's head out to the men and see what's happening. 6-man break. It was a 4-man break. Came back to 6 as the people are jockeying for position, trying to get the best possible placement of their men. And it's a 2:30 right now. Is that what I'm reading over there?
2:30 lead over the 6 riders, and yeah, it's starting with Clark Sheehan and Mike Sayers getting away towards the end of the 5th lap at around about 75 miles, and then the next lap, which was lap 6, they were chased by Harm Janssen and Chris Baldwin, and they were joined by Lucas Segata and Matt Hansen. And then by lap 7, which is where we are now, we're about 95 miles covered just now, and we've got the 6 of them together. It's an intriguing breakaway because none of these riders we would have talked about as possible winners, with the possible exception of Harm Janssen, who's now got himself up there. And he's the rider riding 3rd from the end of the leading 6 at the moment, so he's right in the middle.
Big question. who is going to chase down this breakaway? What team is going to do it? Is it the Postal Service? Is it the Mape team? Is it the Seiko Cannondale? With these lesser lights, if you will, no disrespect to them, out in front, the rest of the field is going to be looking to the big international teams to take control of this race and go. And maybe, just maybe, one of the reasons for this gap opening up the way it is that those teams are playing chicken, are waiting each other out to see, in a battle of nerves, which will be the team to crack first, which will be the team to go to the front and gobble up this breakaway.
Sayers, Zagato, Sheehan, Hansen, Baldwin, and Jansen. Those are your big six. We also got Mike McCarthy, who's been following these riders on a motorcycle right next to the riders. Mike, can you hear us right now? Hello, Michael.
Yes, sir.
Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting. Harm Jansen came up to this breakaway, sat in the back for a couple of turns, and then absolutely put the hammer down, almost put the brake into pieces here. You see now Clark Sheehan's gone to the front on the hill. He's putting a huge effort in here. I think what they want to do is try to get the group back down to 4 guys here, or at least a number of these riders, encourage them to work a little bit here. Some of the guys, Hansen in particular, doesn't seem to want to work. Zagato doesn't seem to want to work. You see Harm Jansen now dropping off the back of the brake. He'll be with this group over the top of the hill, 100% guaranteed. So some interesting progress happening here. You see Sheehan absolutely going up this hill like a rocket.
They are really putting the pedal to the metal. We talked to Mark Gorski earlier, Mike, and he was complaining that the crowd, the racers weren't aggressive enough for his liking.
Well, I'll tell you what, don't tell Clark Sheehan that right now, because this guy is absolutely ripping this climb up. You know, unfortunately, I've done this climb a number of times, and the television just doesn't do justice to it. This is a steep, steep climb, and the heat's really starting to take its toll now. This race is going to enter a completely, it's really going to begin again after 100 miles. And Clark Sheehan's right there. He's starting it off. This is a guy who knows how to win big bike races, and he's really sending a good message here right now.
Mike, do you think it's a wise move for Sheehan to get rid of these riders? Even though they're not working that much, they're able to work a little bit, and one man on his own.
I think it's Clark's MO. I think he wants to get up here, like I said, maybe pare the group down a little bit, try to develop a little bit more cohesion with the guys that do go over the top with him here. You see right now, Sayers and the Navigator's rider are a little bit back there. I think you'll see Harm Jansen come across here over the top of the climb, and I think that'll be a great group of 4 riders. Whether Zagato wants to participate or not is really sort of a wild card right now. But Clark Sheehan, you know, very savvy, very experienced rider, and this is the place for him to be.
All right, thank you, Mike. Attacking the wall for the 7th time. You can hear what's going on. You can see what's going on. The sights and sounds of Manayunk. Let's go live now to Jack Brayboy at the start-finish line about the U.S. Postal team. Hello, Jack.
Yeah, you got it, Gary. How you doing? Of course, the Postal Service team has been a team we've been talking about all day long. They haven't been having an awful lot of success, but of course, they are the guys in the red, white, and blue. They are the team that always delivers.
This racing moment is brought to you by the U.S. Postal Service.
When the U.S. Postal Service was formed in 1996, it attracted notice not because of the quality of its riders, but because of the sponsor. The post office, after all, was the hulking bureaucracy that delivers our mail, not a sports apparel manufacturer hungry to sell product. Soon, though, the U.S. Postal Service team was making headlines because it delivered in the cycling arena. Their first big splash came right here in Philadelphia in 1996 when a complete unknown, one of the team's second-tier riders, broke away from the field around Logan Circle and won in an impressive solo victory. His name, Eddie Gregas. In 1997, he didn't win the overall victory at the First Union USPro Championship, but the title of USPro Champion fell to George Hincapie, who was the first American. Later, though, officials stripped him of the title in a controversial ruling. 1998 was a big year for the U.S. Postal Service in the First Union Championship. For one thing, team leader Lance Armstrong, the top American cyclist competing today, was back after a successful fight against testicular cancer. More importantly, the team was hungry to avenge Hincapie's lost title. The U.S. Postal Service rode brilliantly, dominating the race in the final crucial hour. In the end, Hincapie showed his skill by not only finishing the top American once again, but also by winning the First Union Championship. And by the way, if you're still wondering about the Postal Service as the team's sponsor, you might be interested to learn that the U.S. Postal Service does not receive a penny of taxpayers' money. And the pro cycling team has certainly delivered big results.
Boy, U.S. Postal Team, through snow, through rain, through sleet. How about through the sun of Philadelphia? Will they be able to deliver the mail today? That is the big question. Who's going to break it out? Let's go back to the race with Phil and John and see what's happening. And here we are. We're down to 5. We had 6. We thought maybe one was going to drop back. Has he?
Well, we still got Clark Sheen trying to draw up one or two of the strong boys from the top of the climb. I think Mark McCormack was right. This guy is trying to break up the breakaway because he wants only the strong riders to stay with him now, and he's gone clear. And I do remember that wonderful break he did racing into Virginia on the Tour du Pont when he hung on to finish as the winner. It was a great result that day for him, and he's got the ability to stay away in a race like this if they allow him to run. At the moment, the latest check we have is 2 minutes 30. One or two riders are going to claw their way back into the action. It looked to me as though Lucas Segato of Nutrifig was feeling the pressure a little bit on the climb, and maybe they won't all get back up to Clark, but he'd be silly to try and ride this race off the front on his own right now, John.
That was my point before. You've got Clark Sheehan in front on his own, 100 meters behind him, 3 other riders. They should get together and work together and save their energy and use it wisely and try to stay away as long as they can in this bike race instead of fighting each other the way they are right now.
That could be a problem for Clark Sheehan. We'll be back with more of the U.S. Pro Cycling Championships live here on Channel 6. Stay right there. Hey, Phil wants to go there next year. Phil, you want to stay here, don't you? Isn't that unbelievable? Isn't that so much fun?
I used to be a zookeeper, and I used to look after reptiles. I'd love to be down there right now and have hold of that boa.
Snakes and iguana. That's a
beautiful
lot of fun.
iguana. They must be on some nice big pieces of meat down there.
Celebration of the neighborhoods. I mean, the riders have got to feel that they're going through certain moments. The crowd's getting bigger. The race is getting hotter. It's one of those moments.
It really is, and that is part of the charm of this event, the fact that the entire community does come together and celebrates and gets into it and cheers on the bike riders, and you're going up the Manayunk Wall and you're smelling frying hamburgers and screaming.
Ooh.
There's beer spilling on the streets. It's wild, and it's what attracts the riders and makes this race so special worldwide.
You can smell everything on that wall, huh?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's take a little break here. We'll be back with more of the U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. Oh, it's getting hot and heavy. This is the place to be. We'll be back right after. Back live, U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. Just about ending lap number 7. Number 7 out of 10 as they're heading down with the big 4 in the lead, and they're getting some refreshments from those cars. Communication, supplies, nutrition, all part of the elements of this race. Welcome back with Gary Papa, Phil Leggett, and John Eustace. And we got 4 out in front with a margin of about, what, 2 minutes and 22 seconds?
I think they've caught the 2 in between now that were left on the Manayunk Wall. They originally were 6, and now we've got just the 4. I think we're approaching 4 minutes, Gary.
Wow.
After going up quite a lot now.
That is quite a lead right now, 4 minutes at this point. That's one of our biggest leads of the day.
Yeah, so 4 minutes is quite a lot, and I think on this lap, George, the U.S. Postal boys have got to start making a move on this race.
Yeah, it's getting close to the finish, and they have to do it for 2 reasons. Number 1, catch this breakaway, and number 2, if their complaints are justified on the part of Mark Gorski, start to make this race hard. They got to toughen up this field.
Got to make it more aggressive. You got to watch Fred Rodriguez of that team. He's one of those guys that's been a pretty good story, hasn't he, John?
Excellent story. Young American, broke his collarbone 2 times last year. Now this is his comeback to top competition, and he's here as the leader of the Mopé team. He's their team sprinter, but he should really try to deliver the goods.
Not hurt too much from that team, have we, Phil? They're back in the pack, not part of any of the breaks too much, except I think earlier it was Ronaldo.
Yes, Ronaldo Gentini. He did very well on the climbs early on, but he's back in the pack now. The gap we've just shown you there is 2 minutes and 22 seconds, so it's not quite the 4 I thought it was. And there's a lot more action being done now here at the front. The Linda McCartney team in the gold and black are driving at the front of the race now. I think we might well see the capture this lap, but I did feel at this lap they had to start to really show some speed in the race to bring back that breakaway, to leave room for the maneuvers and tactics that will follow to try and take out the first prize, which is $33,000 to the winner. And of course the first American becomes the national champion of the USA for this year, and for that he gets to wear the stars and stripes on his racing jersey, which nobody else can wear.
It's a very interesting team, this Linda McCartney team. It's very well supported by the famous Beatle, Paul. He actually goes to races, disguised occasionally. Has to disguise himself with his daughter to watch them, and he really encourages their participation, and he dubs them the clean machine. I've actually got a quote here from Paul McCartney about his team. It says, quote, "Me and the kids are really happy to support the Linda McCartney Pro Cycling team because this clean machine proves that vegetarians aren't all carrot-munching, weedy freaks. And they keep alive the memory of our beloved Linda." And there you are, from Paul McCartney.
Very good. Let's go to the man who runs Team iPay right now. He's live on the phone. Are you there, Mark?
Yes.
How's it going for your team so far?
Oh, it's been very good till now. We were very good in the beginning of the race with Ronaldo in front. And then in the big breakaway of 30, we had 4 riders, so I can't complain.
Mark, we had the leader on of U.S. Postal Service. He was complaining that the race wasn't aggressive enough for his team. Do you find that to be the case as well for your team?
Yeah, maybe it's the case, but for us it's good like this.
Mark, what would your plan be in the last couple of laps? Would you like to see these 4 riders in the lead caught now so there's room for more attacks to follow?
Well, maybe not in the lap but follows, but in the next 2 laps I would like to have one big peloton, and then maybe a break of 15 riders with Rodriguez and Bramati of our team.
But in your day, you were a good sprinter as well, weren't you? If they all come home together, who can win from Mapei?
I think our best chances are with Rodriguez. The man to beat is for sure Incapi.
Okay.
And, he beaten him only a few times, so we hope he does it again today.
All right, Mark. Well, the best of luck, and we're looking forward. We hope you're enjoying the coverage anyway, and we'll see you at the finish line.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mark. Maybe Fred Rodriguez, he says. We shall see. All right, with Phil and John, we'll be back in a moment. U.S. Pro Cycling Championships live right here on the Ben Franklin Parkway. We are back live, U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. Hold on to everything. Don't drop anything right there. We are live on lap number 8. Let's check out the race summary up to the moment. Let's see what's going on.
This racing summary is brought to you by Amoroso's.
Amoroso's with that bread, and let's see what's going on. 4-man break with Sheehan, Sayers, Jansen, and Baldwin. The current gap is 2:20. Is that what we got, Phil?
That's absolutely right. It's come down a couple of seconds. They are the survivors of the 6-man breakaway. Here they are. And they are now heading up towards the Manayunk wall again. And the man in the middle of these 3 in the red crash helmet is Harm Jansen. We've also got Mike Sayers here, Clark Sheehan, who's been doing a lot of work in this breakaway. He's at the back of the group at the moment, but he won't stay there for long. He split up the 6 leaders on the climb last time up the Manayunk wall. But there are signs now that the main field is trying to bring back the race. And if they can bring back the race, then, of course, we're going to see a lot of attacks.
A lot of it. Back live, U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. Those are the big 4 on lap number 8. Those are your leaders, Sayers, Sheehan, Hansen, and Baldwin. They've been controlling it for the last couple of minutes. A gap right now, Phil, of about 2 minutes plus, I think.
Yeah, we think 2:20, and really they've got to chase that down. And we heard Marc Sargent, the manager of Mapei, say that he would like to see these back in the fold, if not this lap, certainly the next time around, to allow the team's chance to maneuver a breakaway that will really hurt the race. There's an awful lot of riders still back in that main field. It's a big bunch, and there's a lot of riders who will always believe they can win this race. Now, there's a shot of the main field, you see, and there's no organized chase here. There's only just the odd team rider at the front, whereas if there was an organized chase, you would see all the riders in the same colored jerseys chasing down those 4 riders. So there's a lot of work to be done yet, John, to bring this breakaway back.
And it goes back to a point that we talked about before. No team has taken the responsibility for this chase.
That's right.
Seiko Cannondale, a little bit at the front. Mapei, they're happy to wait. And Postal Service seem to be just a little bit unhappy about everything for the moment. So no one's taking the charge, no one's taking the front, and this breakaway is at least hanging, and maybe even, if I read that correctly, 3:20, 3 minutes,
3 minutes,
gaining some time on the approach to the Manayunk wall.
Yeah. It was 2 minutes when we started out here a few seconds ago. Now it's up to 3 minutes for these guys. Of course, one man we want to watch, number 1, George Hincat, the U.S. Postal Service. Interesting story about George. In a few moments, we'll go with Mike McCarthy, who's on the motorcycle following these guys, as we check out lap number 8 and the big 4 pulling away 3 minutes plus.
This is the field here, and there's another Nutrafig rider trying to get clear. It looks to me like Ron Schmier, who's trying to go clear of the field. Looks to me like Ron Schmier trying to go clear the field here for the Nutrafig team, and Ron is really driving on here. He's got an odd-shaped bicycle there. You see, no seat tube at all. This is a soft ride machine, and he sort of bounces up and down with the suspension and the ups and downs of the highway there.
And right there on the floor of the race, Mike McCarthy. Mike, how you doing? Can we see you? Can we hear you? Where are you?
Right here, Gary. We're at the bottom of the climb. These guys have just started the climb up the Manayunk wall. You know, I was just watching these guys go through the town of Manayunk, and the crowd support there is unbelievable, but that's where this break is really going to gain a great advantage. They don't have to jockey for position at all through there. Now you see Harm Jansen at the back of the group here, drifting off the back. Phil made a comment that he thought maybe Harm was a little weak on the climb. I think Harm's the most savvy guy in here right now. He's letting his legs rest as much as possible of the climb, doing as little effort as he can do. But as you said, I think the key point here is that Mape's not here, Seiko's not here, the Postal Boys aren't here. There's definitely a second race happening back in the field, and these guys have a nice advantage when that all sets up here. So I think Harm Jansen definitely a player based on his results this spring, and these other 3 guys working very nicely together.
One thing, Mike, we can really get a sense of what it's like to go up that wall with all the people, and I guess you can describe what's going on when the response of the people when those bike riders go by.
Well, these guys are all working, working very well here. To give you an idea, our motorbike is in first gear, lugged down to about 1,000 RPMs. We're not going very fast here, but this crowd, boy, if there was ever a motivation for a bike rider to put out a huge effort in a bike race, it's right here. There are just thousands of people up here. These people are bananas for this race.
All right, thank you, Mike McCarthy, live on the Manayunk wall.
Well, Harm Jansen here is the one in trouble on the climb. He was last time as well. But I think he'll limit his losses on the climb, and he'll pedal back on the downhill because he's that sort of rider. He's not going to waste his energy absolutely dying on the climb to hang on to these riders. He'll ease back, keep them in sight, and make it up on the way down. There's the main field, and they're in town.
Now here comes the big move that we've been waiting for from one of the big teams, Team Seiko, the red jersey, the Seiko Cannondale. Italian boys on American bicycles, all lined up, ready to blast up the hill in the chase of these 4 men who are cresting the hill right now. The big race right now happening back in the field as the big guns hit the front and try to blow up this field, and we are going to watch this action as they come into it.
Well, this is tremendous now as Seiko Cannondale have decided this time at the Manayunk wall they're going to try and explode the main field and reduce the lead of those 4 riders, currently down to 3. And Salvatore Commesso, Massimiliano Mori, the Italian who finished second here last year, he's made it quite open. He wants to win it this year, and he's ordered the team to the front now to do something about it. And they've got some good riders here who can actually climb well, like Uriarte of Spain and Hernandez of Spain. And they really are flying up this climb now, John. Look at this.
Wow, look at them go. That's what they call big chain wheel stuff in bike racing. That's a big gear. They're going up a very steep hill, and look at the team working. Look at the gap that they've opened up on the riders behind them. And look for Salvatore Commesso, the man from Napoli, to really launch an attack and bust this race wide open. And there he goes on the right side of our screen.
Well, this is unbelievable now. They've just ridden away. Nobody's been able to go with him. He dashed through the water spray there. He changed direction. That must have been Mr. O'Brien's water hole. Thank you, says Commesso.
Famous in Italy.
Yeah, you bet your life as he goes through now. This is doing real damage. The main field has gone into the distance there. 3 Seiko boys getting clear. That really would cause trouble for US Postal.
Well, if they wanted an aggressive race, the Postals, the Italians are delivering it right now with Commesso flying up this hill, and I believe that's Mori behind him.
It certainly looks like him.
Certainly last year's second-place rider, Massimiliano Mori.
And look how calmly he climbs the mountain. He's a climber. Commesso isn't such a climber. He's more of a sprinter. But he's trying to tow this man clear of the field now, which will throw the gauntlet down to US Postal, who will have to react to this move because Mori wants to try and take out this race. I think it's him, but we'll get confirmation when they come through. But certainly up front there, we've got Commesso. Well, there's the information on Massimiliano Mori, who was second here last year.
In front, the leaders still holding on to their lead, but they better count the time because in a case like the one that the Seiko Cannondale is putting on, coming from behind, their lead is going to get eaten up. There's a lot of power behind, and here it is. Two Seiko boys.
Interesting, Janssen has got back on the descent now. They've dropped one of their own teammates here. They've now left him behind to go back to the field. So these two riders are going to cause a complete rethink now, because these riders are serious contenders for the first prize. Not that anybody else isn't, but these are the men who've built their reputations racing in Europe in some of the big races. Mori and Comesso, the two top riders on the Seiko team, have decided this race needs a little bit of a shake-up. Look at this.
Comesso is a man who lives for aggression. He loves to be in the front of a bike race. In every event of the First Union Cycling Series this week, Comesso has been on the attack, forcing breakaways, trying to get off the front of the field and win the race, and he's kept saying that he needs some more luck. He'd fall, he'd miss the brake, a flat tire. He just wasn't able to put it all together, and maybe today he's able to do it. It's certainly what he's looking for.
Well, this is absolutely the one he wants. I actually saw him win his very first race when he became a professional rider with Seiko, and he was a very confident boy. He's only won that one race ever in his career. It was a stage of the Tour of the Cape in South Africa in the March of 1998, but he is very close to landing something big. He is a man that everybody says is going to do something special in the world of cycling. He's caused the reaction. Look at the split in the field, John. This isn't the big field. This is only an advanced party trying to get up to the leaders.
That is the power of a top European World Cup level team, and you've just seen the result right there. Correct. There goes the field into a million pieces.
They have really made this into a super race. The aggression is on, the heat is on, the race is on. We are back live as they're coming to lap number 9 on the U.S. Pro Cycling Championships, and we're just talking about during the break, there's no team like the Italians. When they got something to do, they wanted to do something, and boy, they made a serious move right there. You saw it on the wall.
You certainly did. They blew this race into bits. They caused what we call a selection, and look who it is at the front of the selection. Defending national professional champion George Hincapie, the United States Postal Service, in front of this group that looks to be filled, about 20 riders.
They split the field in thirds, I would say, rather than half here, and US Postal have got some of the boys up here. There are at least 3 riders in this breakaway. This is where they picked up the 2 boys in red who decided to go for it, caused that consternation, and they've been reached by a large group, but certainly not the whole race here. And that's Mori on the right. Sorry about the little picture breakup. It's usually when the cameras go under railway bridges and the helicopters can't reach the pictures, but there we are. These are live action pictures as they happen here. And we're on the Kelly Drive again now, heading down towards Lemon Hill. A lot of the riders from the Danish Accept Card team are here. They're the half colours blue and white, about 4 to 5 men back. And the gap now is only 1:34 to the 4 leaders. So that reaction coming from Seiko, now joining in some more riders from the race here, has halved that gap. It's down to 1:34. It shouldn't be long before they start pulling those leaders in.
That's where we thought he might end up. That's where he is right now. George Hincapie, number 1, leading the U.S. Postal Service as they're finishing up lap number 8. And one of the back live U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. Lap number 8, just about ready to start as they're heading down towards the end of number 7. We saw what the Italians can do. We saw what George can do. Can he become a defending champion who wins it again? We saw it in the women's race, and so far in the, how many years has this race been going on? 15 years, I guess.
It's the 15th year.
Yeah.
15 years. So 3 guys have won this race before that are in the race today, but no one has ever won it a second time. Could it be King George doing it today?
Well, he's never had a finer season, Gary, and if he's going to do it, it's going to be this year because he's ridden so well. But, you know, he's got a lot of work to do yet.
Let's go to the race summary, see what's happening up to the moment. U.S. Pro Cycling Championships.
This racing summary is brought to you by Michelob Light.
And right now there's a 4-man break as Sheehan, Sayers, Jansen, and Baldwin. The maximum gap at that point was 3 minutes, but as we see right there, 2 guys of the Chase group and the Maniac Wall were caught by the group. And of course, leading that group is our man, King George Hincapie, U.S. Postal Service. And they made a major move. The major part of this race, if it is to be written about who exactly is going to win, could be what we just saw on the Maniac Wall a few moments ago.
Certainly a key factor in the development, tactical development of this bike race. We've been following Comesso, Salvatore Comesso all day. We knew that he was going to explode into action, and he certainly did. He lived up to our expectations, and now he's caused this big group to split off from the field, and will they be able to work together? We'll have to see farther down the road, Phil Liggett.
Yeah, I guess it was very impressive the way the Seiko boys decided this race has got to come alive, and they made that choice to go on the climb. and it just showed how strong they were as well, because nobody could match them. We're looking here now at one of the Linda McCartney riders here, trying to keep the pace up. He's got himself in the front group. This is Scott Gayton. He's not actually English, although he's listed as Great Britain. In fact, he comes from New Zealand, and he's one of the few riders that the team has taken on from foreign countries. They've got a couple on board as well from Australia. But this little group now, you see how they're working very fluidly together. We're looking at George Hincapie. He's checking out the riders who've made this split. We figure there's about 29 of them in this group, and we'll get a full count on that when they get back to us here at the start-finishing line. But George Hincapie doing just enough. He's assessing who the strong ones are, where they are, who is sitting at the back and not contributing to the pace, and that's most important. Are they tired, or are they just shamming? And he'll have to work it out. Anyway, we're on to Lemon Hill now, and the gap is coming down.
Are they just shamming?
That sort of is pretending.
Pretending.
Good English.
Shamming. Very good English. The King's English,
in the
according to Phil Liggett.
The race itself is coming round to complete lap number 8 now, and there are 4 riders in the lead.
Wow.
Yes, we've ascertained there are 25 in the main field, and that they're about to be caught. They've realised it, so the chase down by the boys in red has had its play, because they know now, look in the distance, there's the first rider. It's a Mappe rider who's trying to get across. The field is coming together very, very quickly indeed. We are going to have a massive field, actually, because looking over my shoulder here now, there is an enormous number of riders catching them. And so there's been a general regrouping, I think, here, John.
They've all caught back up. The breakaway has been absorbed. Mori and Comesso had wanted to break this field up more than it has been broken up into smaller pieces. So their plan a little bit has failed. It's taken some of the sting out of the chasers, the legs of the chasers, but really it's too big of a group for the 2 Italians. They don't have a super sprinter like Hincapie or Rodriguez, at least on paper. So look for more attacks to happen, counter-attacks to happen, and we might be having the first one right here in our photo, in our pictures. It looks like a counter-attack from the field after having caught the break, Phil. We'll have to get the numbers.
Well, they've gone straight forward, 3, 6, 8 of them trying to go clear. That's what you do as you bring back the breakaways. You immediately launch another attack, because the main field are usually tired from the chase down and tend to allow you to get away again. And that's always the time to go. And we've got this little group. I'm not in fact sure. These are the riders. These are the original 4 riders here. They've been joined by a couple of emissaries coming up from the main field, but as of yet, the main field has not made contact, so there's still a chance.
One of those riders was Bramati from the Mappe team, a strong, aggressive rider who was so good in the Christiana Care Cup of Wilmington, Delaware last Sunday. A man who wants to perform well and who actually earned his spot on the Tour de France for the Mappe team because of his performances here at the First Union Cycling Series. So every motivation to be in front, Bramati, and there he is right now pulling the breakaway.
Well, he's a good rider. He had a stage win in the Tour of Murcia this year, which is a race in Spain. That was back in March. He hasn't won since then, but he is a workhorse, and he's a very, very strong rider. And there's some interesting riders trying to get themselves on the frame here now, because now we've done 180 miles. Every time somebody attacks, the old legs complain that little bit. We're going out on lap 9 of 10 of these big circuits, and then we go to the small circuits, which continue to climb Lemon Hill before the race will finish. So there's still a long way to go as the riders start to go clear now. The guy from US Postal there, who has made the split, as far as I can see, it looks like Marty Jemison has got himself across. But the race is going past us in 3s and 4s here. This is a scramble to get in on the selection, I think.
This is a point of the race that's very difficult to control, because attacks go on the right, attacks go on the left, they come back, they reform, and it's very difficult to calculate which attack to go with. And it's often the sign of a tactically superior rider, someone who has the right nose, if you will, for the attack, that these good breakaways are formed. You have to know when and how to go. And this is the section of the race, the tactical point of the race, when it becomes crucial to find yourself in the right move of breakaway riders.
We are through 8 laps here of the U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. 2 more to go. It's getting interesting. We'll be back with more right after this.
Climb as we go back to pictures now of the 6 leaders, it looks like we've got down there. There were 8, Gary, but it's down to 6. They're trying to organize some sort of chase here. The Accept card riders have got 2 men in this front group, and the rider there from Mappe who's trying to join them in some sort of action. I just caught a glimpse of him, but I've lost him for the moment. Looks as though he is going to try and get these field on the way. Very difficult to get an event an action here from the breakaway. They're not consolidated, they're looking at each other, and there's the result. Look, it's swelling now to about 10 riders.
Not really organized, is it, John?
It's not really organized. They're all looking for the right combination. It's like setting down, dealing out a hand of cards. Do you have a full house? Do you have a bad hand? When you find the right combination of riders, it works. And that's what they're looking for. And that's what someone like our star there, Salvatore Commesso, back on the attack. You got to love this kid. No, he's not a calculator. He just goes with everything he has. And he's trying to force the right combination of riders, and he's doing it. You've got to break. He's away. It's the second break in a row he's been in, and he is a real key player in this bike race. Back to George Hincapie in the group, trying to control this breakaway up the road ahead.
Good for George. He's looking pretty cool. He's just doing all he has to do at the moment. Let the others do the racing. He's made the decisive split. And just sitting over to George's left as we look at the picture there, it looks like Adriano Baffi, who's a great sprinter in his day, one of the fastest finishers in the world. A little bit long in the tooth now. He's in his mid-30s, but in the old days he would have been a most feared man. George moving up the pack a little bit just to check out. He's definitely got a couple of teammates here who will be looking after him when they have to, but you see somebody's turned the gas up front, and George immediately in to follow them through. That's good riding there by George. At the moment he's sitting there on the back wheel of Boštjan Mervo. He's a Slovenian rider on the Slovenian Telecom team.
So George is positioning himself perfectly. Irving Fryer made the wall. We'll try to talk with Irv in a second if he gets enough oxygen back in that body. We'll be back with more U.S. Pro Cycling Championships. A lot more ahead right here on Channel 6. Back live, U.S. Pro Cycling, about 20 minutes before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The men are attacking the 9th lap of this race. A mini break is happening right now, and Phil, you're all over this one.
Well, it looks as though we've got two of the Postal boys here. We're looking at one now. Benoit Joachim just finished second in the British Tour of Britain. That was a 7-day race, and he's from Luxembourg, a newcomer on the US Postal team. We've also got Marty Jemison up here for the USP. Brian Walton, who's riding so well as he does every year, is again in a decisive move, and so too is Salvatore Commesso, the only member of the Seiko team to make the split. I think we've got 10 riders here, but really they're not very far ahead of the field, John.
That's what's happening at lap number 9, and it's getting very serious.
Well, it is. We're now at 125 miles covered, and the riders here now trying to sort out this leading breakaway, because we've got 10 riders in front, 35 seconds ahead of 18 riders. The 18 riders, we see Marty Jemison here. The other Postal boy who's made it, as I said, is Benoit Joachim, who's only just 23 years of age. By the way, he got a place on the US Postal Services team because his dad, who lives in Luxembourg, kept ringing the team and saying, "You've got to take my son on your team." And in the end, they got so tired of his phone calls, they took him, and he's turned out to be a real discovery. He's a very, very good bike rider.
One of the attributes, fine attributes of the U.S. Postal Service is they find out all for the best riders from around the world, bring them in, teach them the American system, our American version of European professional bicycle racing, and that is one of the reasons that this team has become one of the top World Cup teams in existence today. One rider there, the accept card rider, very aggressive as they've been the entire week. Bramati there in full photo, if you will, full picture. The Italian, generally a worker, but maybe having a card to play for his own results this race today. He's certainly been powerful this ride.
Well, there's Bramati, and stage winner Tour Mercy, that was in March this year, and it looks like Bramati is trying to just liven things up. The rider in the red jersey there, who's trying to come up too, is Salvatore Commesso. He's been marking everything today, and obviously is feeling in very, very good condition. He'll enjoy this sort of weather. It's just like it would be around Naples at this time of the year. Perfect.
And as they go into the approach to the Manionc wall, Salvatore Commesso in front, not hiding.
Now, what will he do this time up the hill, John? We saw what happened last time.
I feel a little bit sorry for the guys who are with him in that breakaway, because they're about to go through a whole lot of pain.
Now, this is the chase group containing George Hincapie. It's getting bigger. We believe there's 18 riders in this group at the moment. A lot of US Postal boys, you see, in the US Postal team are chasing, despite the fact they've got 2 riders in the front group, because they're not the 2 riders they want in the front group, so they need to redress the situation. Back up to the front, and there's Joachim at the back, number 3 for US Postal. The one out of the saddle further up in the blue, and that is Jemison. And the 2 accept cards who've made this breakaway are Jakob Piel, who had a win here the other day as well. He won in Lancaster. And also we've got Sonne, or Sonne, I think you'll actually say his name. He's also in this breakaway, and that's a Morten Sonne 2 Danish riders from Accept card. So they've made sure they've got in the move this time, having spent the early days of this race chasing.
Jakob Piel, a very interesting rider, was a track rider on the indoor racing circuit, had a broken bone last winter, couldn't race the indoor tracks, turned himself into a fine top road racer. Happy being on the hills and winning races on the road. In the front, Salvatore Camesso, forcing the pace for Seiko Cannondale. Bramati right next to him. Crucial climb of the Manayunk Wall.
It is, and now let's see what's going to happen here, because Camesso is setting the pace on the front yet again. There's a few cars between this group now and the main field, or the chase field, which means the gap must be more than 30 seconds as they start the climb here, and that's Marty Jemison on the front at the moment for US Postal, hurting 1 or 2 of the younger riders in this race. I'm not surprised at this point of the course. It's a tough little climb this now, and look at this, riders starting to drop off all over the climb. This is the 9th time. Only 1 more climb up the hill.
9th time, and Phil, I do believe that I saw out of the corner of the screen in the shot from the field, George Hincapie on the attack. So in the front, Camesso, Piel on the attack. In the back, Hincapie of the Postal trying to break up what's left of the field. And that is Hincapie leading the field.
Right. You're absolutely right, and look at the gap now. Well, Hincapie has been on one of those seasons you just hope comes your way, and you don't know why it does, but it's come this way this year for George. He started off with a fine 9th place in Milan-San Remo, a World Cup counter in Italy. That race almost 300 kilometers, 180 miles long, and George got 9th. So he's had that form ever since. His great 4th place in Paris-Roubaix and his 4th place in Ghent-Wevelgem, 2 classics in Belgium and France, indicated he's coming here with his finest form ever. And now, can he get up to these leaders? And he looks, he's remonstrating a little bit to the riders, because he hates these gaps opening by other people leaving the door open. It takes so much effort to shut them down, but there's a break going here.
Part of the responsibility that George Hincapie is going to have to assume with his new title as one of the world's best bicycle racers. No presence from the rest of the field.
You were talking earlier about that, John, the fact that when George won last year, he seemed to take on the persona of a champion, that once he put on that jacket, he lived up to the billing. Some guys go back. George seemed to revel in it.
He loved the pressure. He went to the Tour de France, was 2 seconds out of the yellow jersey, in the top 5 all the time in the stages, just missing a stage win, and he continued that fine performance this year in the early season classics, 4th at the Paris-Roubaix, which is one of the world's most famous, wonderful races, and he is one of the big players on the world scene today.
King George. We'll see if he's crowned again. We had a defending champion win it on the women's side with Petra Rosner, and George Hincapie, who won it last year, is trying to do the same thing on the men's side as they're on lap number 9, and here they come really fast.
Well, this is the long descent now from the Manayunk Wall, and Hincapie is getting himself into
how fast are these guys going right
here? They should be doing 50 mile an hour now, easily coming down here. As the riders now are trying to close this race down, but now it's the battle of the strong men of this year's US Pro Championship, because there's only 1 more lap, which includes the Manayunk Wall. Then we move all of our concentration to 3 further laps, taking in Lemon Hill. This looks like the legs of David McKenzie flexing at the back here, the Australian sprinter, and he's going across to the leaders as well.
50 miles an hour plus, heading down the Manayunk Wall for the 9th time. US Pro Cycling Championships. We'll be back with more with King George right after this. Back live, US Pro Cycling Championship. This is lap 9 of lap number 10, and big things happening again, Phil, because they're about to get caught.
They're about to get caught. The man in yellow here, Linda McCartney's Australian sprinter, David McKenzie, who's riding good. George Hincapie is in this group as well, driving through at the front at the moment. There is the breakaway as we knew it, and Hincapie has now put himself back up amongst the leaders as well. They're coming together here, and I think, you know, we're seeing the beginnings of the end for the rest of the race.
This is the move that they've been trying to make happen. That's what Maury has been doing, attacking off the front, trying to break this field up. It's a big group that's all together. Expect more counterattacks as they try to whittle down the amount of riders who gathered here together in the front. But Phil, the big players are up in the front here, and it looks like the race very well could be decided from among these riders.
All right, coming up on 2 o'clock, let's go to the race summary.
This racing summary is brought to you by First Union.
10-man break, including the names on the screen right there. Maximum gap at one point was 35 seconds, but right now, as we said, It's a lot closer than that.
Certainly is. They're coming together now, but as soon as they come together, you see riders are sprinting off the front. They will not let this race rest at all now, and why should they? Because we're at the crucial stage at about 125 kilometers, maybe slightly more covered now, at 128. We're on Kelly Drive again. The Schuylkill River's off to the right there. We're heading down towards Lemon Hill. These are the pace setters, still trying to set the trend here. The man who's doing a lot of the work at the front there is Benoit Joachim for the US Postal, while meanwhile in a group that's about to make contact, upcoming here is number 1, the defending US champion George Hincapie, and Hincapie now getting a little bit of a restful ride, in fact on the team wheel of Benoit Joachim. So the rider up front was in fact Marty Jemison, the other member in this breakaway.
And in one of the matchups that we've been looking forward to all day, as the riders in the front here, the breakaway, sit up and wait for the chasers behind to catch them. Oh, attack on the right.
Yes, some do and some don't, John, because this rider here is anxious to keep this race going as long as possible off the front. He's making it so hard for the riders who keep on joining at the back, and this is good cycling because it means the boys behind are always on the defensive while these attacks keep coming up off the front. This looks like Brian Walton. Certainly got the style of Brian Walton. We'll catch up with him if we can. But the Canadian rider is always in the thick of it, and he's an aggressive rider who wins virtually all of his races by himself. It is Brian Walton too, so that's a very typical move by him.
Wonderful sort of rider that can win races on the road or on the banked velodromes, as you saw in the graphic. Silver medal in the Olympic points race on the bank tracks in Atlanta. But in back of Brian Walton, the United States Postal Service has taken command of this event.
He sat up immediately, look, because he saw the reaction. They've all come up alongside him and he's gone back into the field. Common sense thing to do here. Now, George Hincapie quite prepared to work at the front now. This man is full of confidence, and when you've got confidence, then you get results. It's as simple as that.
Champion is on the attack, and as we were saying before, one of the great matchups that we've been looking forward to all day. George Hincapie, United States national champion, leader of the United States Postal Service team, versus the young Colombian-American Fred Rodriguez from the Mape team, who was in that breakaway as well.
We're right now live on the telephone. We have the coach of the Saturn team, Renee Wenzel. Renee, are you with us right now? Renee, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, this is Tom. I'll talk.
How is it going for your team? You saw the power of the U.S. Postal Service team with George. Those guys look rather strong, don't they?
Well, the Saturn team is well represented right now with Brian Walton in the front group and Levi Leipheimer with the Hincapie group. So right now we feel pretty good because out of the 9 in the front we have one, and out of the 7 chasing we have another. So things are pretty good right now.
So you say Levi Leipheimer in the second group, or in fact, I think he must have joined with the leaders now, because pictures we're seeing here now, they all seem together at the front.
Actually, I think that's right. It should be 16 in the front. We should have 2 in there.
Right. So things are okay, Tom. It's been a very strange race today. The race patterns haven't been...
One lap to go, I think, here.
Okay. So, Tom, we'll leave you because the line isn't working too well between you and me right now.
Thank you, Phil.
We'll come back when we can.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Tom Schuler, from the director of the Team Saturn team. We'll be back with more of the U.S. Pro Cycling Championships right after this. Back live, U.S. Pro Cycling Championships as they're ending up lap number 9 out of lap number 10. And the group that's in front now has now grown to 18
riders, Gary, and in fact they've split the main field to pieces. It all started with that attack by the boys in red the previous lap at the Manayunk Wall, because we've lost track of the main field. They're over a minute behind, which doesn't sound a long way, but in between is a group of 10, a group of 6. We're looking at the lead group here, which we've estimated at 18 riders now. It includes George Hincapie, the defending champion, but there are a lot of good riders also have made this split, John, and Hincapie's still going to have to produce some good moves to shake them off, I think.
He's going to have to produce the moves indeed, but he's using his teammate, Joachim from Luxembourg. The man has been placed himself on the front of this breakaway group and is basically burying himself with effort, just forcing this break, ensuring that the gap opens up on the field and that the race will indeed be decided among these riders. Look at this Postal Service rider from Luxembourg on the front, just doing everything he can to keep this race going fast. That's teamwork in action.
Absolutely right. Now we're seeing the tactics in reverse from US Postal. They've watched everybody, but now they've caused the split and they're riding at the front with all of what we call their domestics, the helpers. This is Harm Janssen at the back here, dangling a little bit after a great day of racing in the lead. He's having a tough job holding on now. There are in fact 20 riders in this lead group, and Benoit Joachim, the Luxembourger on US Postal, is the rider right on the front to try and open the gap and distance the riders who are desperately scrabbling now to rejoin the front end of the race. Once they come down, it won't be long now, a mile and a half or so into Ben Franklin Parkway, we are going to see 20 riders in the lead. The gap has gone up thanks to the efforts by Benoit Joachim to 24 seconds on a chasing group of 6 riders. The rest are falling away from the pace now.
This looks very well to be the crucial race, the crucial move in this bike race. You've got big stars in front, you've got teams, you've got decided aggressive tactics on the way. This could very well be the event.
So many teams jockeying for the perfect position, and one more time they'll be at Manayunk, and that is the end of the race. We're on lap number 9, just about wrapping up lap number 9. Trying to get a hold of Mike McCarthy, who's on that motorcycle at the end of the race. I don't know if Mike, can you hear me yet?
Yeah, I can hear you, Gary. I'm right here. Joachim's making an unbelievable effort up there. I think he senses that this is the move. When I looked back on Benjamin Franklin Parkway, the only group I saw that was anywhere in sight was a group of 5 riders. They were about a minute behind on the longest straightaway. I could see them. Right now, Joachim is the man doing a majority of the work. He almost came off on the small hill through Strawberry Meadows. He's regained, he's back at the front, but this is definitely the move. I think a man who looks extremely good to me in this group right now is Freddie Rodriguez. He came up, an effortless look on his face. Some of the other riders showing a lot of the strain. Freddie Rodriguez, a guy that we've spoken a little bit about, not a whole lot, just looks absolutely fresh right now. And I think, looking at what's going on up here right now, he is going to be George Hincapie's biggest threat.
Very impressed with Fred Rodriguez. How about George? Is George around there anywhere? Hincapie.
George came to the front, took a huge pull, actually sort of attacked the group when he came up here. And then as he slid back, he looked every guy in the face, I think trying to get a good feel for what was going on in the race here. Just a good, try to sense how everybody was feeling. There are definitely some fatigued guys out there. The heat's really starting to take its toll. I know I'm sweating up a storm back here, and I'm not even pedaling a bike. So this is really where the big action is going to take place. I don't think you're going to see guys coming from behind anymore unless these guys totally stop.
Watching the bike riders ride around Logan Circle for the 9th time. Phil Leggett heading towards the Parkway, and then one more time. Next time they do this, it'll be for real.
It certainly will. It'll be the end of the Manayunk Wall next time, but then the riders will go on to the bigger climbs, of course, as they come up. But the riders now, we've got, in fact, 17 riders now confirmed in this front group. 3 members of the US Postal Services team are here, and the other big names are getting themselves up here all the time. The Accept car have got 2 riders here. In the top riders, Jakob Peel, and also in here is Martin Sonner. The Slovenians have put 1 rider who's been in all of the moves every day, every time, and that's Frost Merlin from the KRKA Telecom team. And the top boy 2 from MAPE is in here. That's David Bramati. 155 has done well to get in here. Just check out who that is, because Anton Villatoro from the Composite A team. This is now beginning to look a very good breakaway.
And it's funny, it's exactly what the team director of the MAPE team said would happen. About a 15-man breakaway,
yeah.
And it would go to the finish with Fred Rodriguez in it.
Yes, Fred's there too, that's quite right.
That's a very clever team director with a lot of experience. Mark Sargent.
And now when they ring that bell, they mean it. This is the one that truly is the Bell Lap.
They'll have one more lap of the big loop, one more time through Manayunk, one more time up the Manayunk Wall. They'll make it back here to the Benjamin Franklin Parkway for the final 3 laps of Lemon Hill before we finish this 15th anniversary of the First Union United States Professional Championship.
So that little field there, the Accept car boys are doing the driving, and most of the driving is being done by Sonner, because Peel is the one they will try to rest. As Seiko have only in fact got 1 rider up here now, and that's not quite the way it should have worked out for them. Salvatore Commesso.
Back here are the chasers, looking a little bedraggled. They do not look to have the decisive attitude among them to be able to catch this group in front, and part of that attitude is being determined by the rider in 2nd position, Frankie Andreu.
Yeah,
looking around, slowing down that chase group.
Correct.
Because his boys, 3 of them, including his big favorite, Hincapie, are in front. Plan has gone to perfection. with this man, the most experienced American racer on the international scene today.
Yeah, that's absolutely true now. They're trying to back off anybody reaching these 17 leaders. As far as they are concerned, the US Postal, they've got their man in there with George Hincapie. Now it's up to him.
9 laps in the books. 1 lap to go, 1 big lap to go. We'll be back with more US Pro Cycling Championships